Now that I've played through all Call to Arms maps that came out in 2021, I'm going to rank them, kind of, sort of. I'm going to do it in an interesting way. We're going to rank the sets, because there's 3 sets or categories of the Call to Arms that were released. We'll just go with sets. The original set, the All Hallows set, which came out around Halloween, and most recently, the Holiday Seasonal Merry set, which is out now through January 5th, 2022. There was a total of 13 maps from all 3 sets of Call to Arms, and so we're going to go over each set, how I rank them, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, and I want to know your honest opinion about Call to Arms. Did you enjoy these survival modes that were added over this past year, 2021, in Red Dead Online? And what would you like to see done to Call to Arms going into 2022 if we get new Call to Arms in the future? Your thoughts, your views, your opinions, as always, welcome below in the comment section. By the way, if you are new to Call to Arms and you're having trouble, you need a guide, good news, I made a Call to Arms guide video a while back. I'll link it below in the description section. And for all my guides, feel free and check out my guides playlist. So I'm going to start this off with the best of the set, which in my opinion is the originals. I'm just going to go straight to number 1 and then work our way down. So the best set easily is the originals in my opinion. We got 5 maps total. We got Fort Mercer, Blackwater, Valentine, Mcfarland's Ranch, along with Strawberry. They were the first of their kind. Overall solid survival maps. And this was the best content we got in Red Dead Online in 2021 were these Call to Arms survivals. All the maps, you know, not just the originals, but All Hallows, as well as most recently the Holiday Call to Arms. I do not count Blood Money as quote-unquote good content. That's unfortunate because Call to Arms was the only good thing that we got when it came to Red Dead Online content in 2021. The survivals are typical, 10 waves, enemies coming after you. You have to make it through all 10 waves. You get paid out in cash, XP, gold. You have ally NPCs to help you out. You can just leave them where they are, or you can strategically position them in the map. You also have additional weapons you can pick up, ammo crates, health, along with horses you can use, and chemical wagons, a variety of enemy types from the original, including regular gunmen, machete-wielding maniacs, snipers, Teddy Brown clones, men on horseback. You have sometimes attack dogs will show up, war wagons, and even some cannons at Fort Mercer. So the originals are my favorite because these are pretty solid maps overall. So I'm gauging each set based on the overall quality of the maps, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed all 5 maps that came with the originals. But if I were to rank them, the best map, it's hard for me because I love Fort Mercer. I think it's perfect. It's a fort. You're surrounded by enemies coming after you. You have to protect it all Alamo style, and it's a pretty impressive map. Plus, you also have those cannons you have to deal with in later rounds, which make the waves of Fort Mercer even more challenging. But Blackwater is also a very good map as well, so I did enjoy Blackwater. The variety it offers where you can fight on the ground. You can use horses to ride around Blackwater pretty easily. And as it gets more difficult, you can take to the top of buildings. And so the fighting starts on the ground of Blackwater. And eventually, as it gets more difficult with the more difficult waves, then you move up to the top of the buildings in Blackwater, which adds a bit of variety to Blackwater. So I don't know. I mean, Fort Mercer, Blackwater, I guess I'm going to give them a tie for the 2 best maps of Call to Arms. Next is Valentine. Now, Valentine, it was okay. I think this was the first map I officially did for Call to Arms. I did like Valentine, but I think I enjoyed Fort Mercer and Blackwater a little bit more. Mcfarland's Ranch was okay. I do like the openness of Mcfarland's Ranch. It adds a little bit of variety, a little something different than some of the other Call to Arms that we got in the original set. And if you like riding around horseback in these maps, then Mcfarland Ranch is perfect for that. Strawberry was probably my least favorite of the originals, but it did grow on me. The one thing I didn't like about Strawberry was the fact that you have these weather dynamics that will come in automatically. And in Strawberry's case, there's this massive rainstorm that drops, and that can be annoying after a while. But I grew to appreciate and enjoy Strawberry All the maps of the originals for Call to Arms were pretty solid in my opinion, which is why it's easily my favorite set of the three. Now let's talk about my second favorite set, and it's a pretty close second because I absolutely love Halloween season, as most of you know. The All Hallows Call to Arms came out around Halloween. It had 4 total maps, and it puts you up against the dead, whereas the enemies that you faced off against in the original Call to Arms were basically just regular outlaws or bandits. I don't think they were part of any official gang or affiliation or faction within Red Dead Redemption 2 or Red Dead Online. But with All Hallows, you were up against the dead, which is a cultist group that like to cosplay as zombies. They're not actually zombies. They're more similar to the Night Folk, but they like to use weapons like firearms, along with tomahawks and archery skills with bows and arrows. But they do like using guns as well. Last year, whenever they introduced the dead with another event for Halloween, they weren't as well received, but I think Rockstar did a much better job utilizing the dead in the All Hallows Call to Arms. Once again, there were 4 of them, including Armadillo, Shady Belle, Bulger Glade, as well as Butcher's Creek. Armadillo of these All Hallows Call to Arms was my favorite. I absolutely loved being on the map of Armadillo for All Hallows Call to Arms. Plus, it's perfect. It's a Wild West town. You have the Halloween weather effects, which looks really cool and creepy at the same time. And you're being attacked by waves and waves of the dead with firearms, as I mentioned. And some of them, unfortunately, have tomahawks as well as bows and arrows. And some ride in with hell horses, which are basically just regular horses, but they have these flaming hoof cosmetics that look really, really cool and creepy, and you can actually steal the hell horses and ride around with them. It really makes me wish that we could have flaming cosmetics on our horses' hooves and maybe some other cosmetics as well. There's also a ghost train that occasionally shows up at Armadillo. The archers, along with the tomahawk throwers, especially the tomahawk throwers and the Teddy Brown clones, or heavies as you wish to call them, are pretty tough to take down. But one thing that makes All Hallows unique compared to the other 2 sets is the fact that the players have the ability to use the Night Stalker mask, which gives them a little bit of a power boost, and you also can use it to jump on top of buildings or jump on top of the Shady Belle mansion. So Shady Belle was probably my second favorite for this very reason, because you could run around on the ground as Shady Belle, or if you got the Night Stalker mask and took turns with your teammates, you could jump on top of the roof of Shady Belle and try to hold them out from the top of Shady Belle, which was kind of an interesting strategy to use. It didn't always work out, but still, it was fascinating to take advantage of the Night Stalker mask. So Armadillo is my favorite with the Ghost Train. Second favorite is Shady Belle. Bulger's Glade, I like Bulger's Glade because it was once a fictional Civil War battlefield south of Rhodes. And I always thought that this was a good choice for a Call to Arms, because I did do a future locations ideas video some time ago. And several of these locations for All Hallows as well as a holiday Call to Arms were actually used as maps, and Bulger's Glade was definitely interesting. And one thing I liked about Shady Belle, going back to Shady Belle real quick, because it's not too far from Bulger's Glade, is they used the Bull Gators from Red Dead Redemption 2. Well, there's only one Bull Gator. It's a legendary Bull Gator that you have to deal with, but a whole bunch of them show up. It really adds a little interesting twist to the waves of Shady Belle, because these things are massive. They take a lot of damage, and to be honest, with the Halloween weather and having to deal with the dead, you have these giant alligators coming after you, making it a little bit scarier and putting you a little bit more on edge having to deal with the Bull Gators at Shady Belle. But Bulger Glade was a pretty decent, interesting map for the Call to Arms. And Armadillo, going back to Armadillo, I'm just going to jump around. It was the best one to use the Hell Horses for. The other ones weren't so easy to use the horses on, whether it's regular NPC horses you could use or Hell Horses. So Armadillo was the only one in All Hallows that you could really take advantage of the horses. Shady Belle and Bulger's Glade, not so much. Now, when it comes to Bulger's Glade, the one animal that would constantly show up were the cougars, which are also a creepy factor to contend with, along with having to deal with waves of the dead coming after you as you're having this trench warfare against them. You also have to worry about waves and waves of cougars coming to get you. Now let's talk about my least favorite map of all the maps that have come out in 2021 for Call to Arms, Butcher's Creek. I did not like using Butcher's Creek. I did not enjoy playing on this map at all. For one thing, I never really cared about Butcher's Creek to begin with in Red Dead Online or Red Dead Redemption 2, but it is not lit very well. So if you go and you play Butcher's Creek whenever you had the opportunity to do so when the All Hallows Call to Arms was out, it's very dark. Since it's up in the woods of Roanoke Ridge, surrounded by trees, and you also have to deal with the dark Halloween weather setting, which is really cool. It's a very bad combination because at times it was a lot darker than it needed to be in Butcher's Creek, which made visibility a lot worse for that map. And it's just hard to traverse around Butcher's Creek. And I grew to despise playing on the Butcher's Creek All Hallows Call to Arms map. Now, the only funny thing I could say that made me have a chuckle or two on Butcher's Creek was the fact that the bull gators also spawned at Butcher's Creek, but they weren't exactly designed to spawn up in Roanoke Ridge because there's a lot of trees in Roanoke Ridge, unlike down in the swamp. There's trees in the swamp, obviously, in the bayou, but since there's way more trees up in Roanoke Ridge, the bull gators are kind of big, and they get stuck in trees all around Butcher's Creek, and it's actually kind of funny. At first, you're freaking out when you see the bull gators, but then you start laughing because they can't do anything to you. They're trying to come after you, but they keep getting stuck in between this tree and that tree and a couple of trees. So that was laughable, but still, overall, I would have to consider Butcher's Creek the worst map, not only for All Hallows Call to Arms, but the worst Call to Arms map to date when you put them all together. So it would definitely be dead last in my opinion, whereas Fort Mercer, Blackwater probably tie for the best maps in Call to Arms. Now we're going to move on to the most recent and third set of the Call to Arms maps that came out in 2021. The Holiday Seasonal Merry Call to Arms. Now, the reason why I have three names is because it technically has three names. When Rockstar first teased these Call to Arms, they were called Seasonal Call to Arms. When they released in the satchel, when you get it out of the lockbox of the post office, they're called Merry Call to Arms. But if you go by the Newswire, it's Holiday Call to Arms. Rockstar just couldn't decide what name to go with, so we're just going to call them Holiday Call to Arms going forward. There were 4 maps total. It had a Christmas, holiday, New Year's theme to it, and it put you up against the Skinner Brothers, which is a very formidable adversary. There's at least one map where I wish they would have chose a different faction, but for the most part, the Skinner Brothers work pretty well for most of the maps. You have Rhodes, you have Emerald Ranch, along with Hanging Dog Ranch, as well as Coulter. These were the maps for Holiday Call to Arms. The big selling factor to these Call to Arms maps was the fact that it was snow, so there was snow on all these maps. In Coulter, there's always snow, so that's no real surprise, but there was snow down in Rhodes, Emerald Ranch, as well as Hanging Dog Ranch. There were some decorations, like some candy canes, gingerbread men. You had some red and green, like poles, okay. And then you had these red cardinals and bullseyes you could shoot. I never shot all of them. Apparently, if you shoot them all, then you get something for it. You get a leg up, but I never really discovered what that leg up happened to be. The animals that will come after you are wolves, cougars, bears, attack dogs, along with the Skinner Brothers, which have a very similar arsenal to the Dead. They have firearms, but they also have archers, as well as tomahawk throwers, and the tomahawk throwers are deadly. Most of the time, I'm killed by tomahawk throwers, and I think that's a problem a lot of the players have had in Call to Arms, is they just get murdered by, lucky tomahawk throw. You're focused on taking out some other enemies, especially as you get further and further up in the waves of Holiday Call to Arms, and you're focusing on taking out these enemies, and before you know it, boom, in the back of your head, you get slammed with a tomahawk, and it's game over, man. There's also a quote-unquote decorative train that will appear at both Rhodes and Emerald Ranch. And Rockstar made a big deal about this decorative train, but the only part that I noticed that was decorated was the fact that it has a wreath with bells on the front. And it's the same wreath and bells that's on the front of our moonshine shacks. So I was thinking that there'd be bells and there'd be a lot more to do when it came to the decorative train for Holiday Call to Arms. but it's pretty low effort in my opinion. And if I'm being honest, most of the decorations, from the red and green smoke coming out chimneys to the candy canes to the gingerbread men, are pretty low effort when it comes to the overall decorations of the maps for Holiday Call to Arms. The maps themselves are fine for the most part. Rhodes is a pretty decent map. I think that was a great choice for a map for a Call to Arms. Emerald Ranch is pretty good. Emerald Ranch, unlike Rhodes, is a little bit more open. Not exactly as open as, say, Mcfarland Ranch, but it's similar to Mcfarland Ranch, and that allows you to take advantage of horses on Emerald Ranch, whereas Rhodes, you're more focused on staying in town, so it's better just to stay on foot. And it's not exactly similar to Blackwater because you can get on top of a few buildings, including the bank, but there's more options in Blackwater when it comes to buildings you can get on top of, as opposed to Rhodes. But still, there's a bit of variety to Rhodes that makes it unique and interesting as a map. And it's probably my favorite Holiday Call to Arms map. Emerald Ranch is probably my second favorite of these Holiday Call to Arms maps because it's similar to Mcfarland Ranch, but it also is a little different in its own way. And then you have Hanging Dog Ranch. And I actually like Hanging Dog Ranch, even though I have it in third on my list for Holiday Call to Arms maps. It is also one of those maps where you're confined to the ranch itself, but there's so much stuff scattered around the ranch. It's also rather difficult to actually use a horse to traverse around. You're better off just running around Hanging Dog Ranch. There is a little surprise in the barn. Mudrunner bucks are hanging out inside the barn of Hanging Dog Ranch. I guess they're supposed to be reindeer, even though they're not really reindeer. They're white-tailed deer, but okay. Nice effort, I suppose, Rockstar. So yeah, you have some Mudrunner bucks just chilling inside of the barn. And no, you cannot trank them or kill them or sell them to Gus or take them to your camp. They're just chilling and vibing in the barn. One thing that did catch me off guard when it came to Hanging Dog Ranch was the return of the cannon, the same cannons that are used at Fort Mercer, also used at Hanging Dog Ranch. I did not realize this until I was blasted to bits. But yes, one of those cannons gets repurposed from Fort Mercer over to Hanging Dog Ranch. So be mindful of that cannon if you do the Hanging Dog Ranch map. The one map that I took some issue with is Coulter, because the premise of most of these maps is you're going in to protect the townsfolk or villagers of each of these regions from Fort Mercer. I know Fort Mercer is a fort, so that doesn't really count. Or like Blackwater, Valentine, Armadillo. Okay, Armadillo's Collierville at the moment, but it's Halloween, so it worked. But Coulter is abandoned, basically. Of all intents and purposes, Coulter is meant to be an abandoned mining town until the events of Red Dead Redemption 2 a year later in 1899. When the Vanderling gang show up, Coulter is practically abandoned, yet somehow you're supposed to defend an abandoned town from the Skinner brothers. Logically, it doesn't really make sense, but video games and the fact that you have another map you can use for the Holiday Call to Arms. It's hard to traverse around the Coulter map. There is a really good camping location that my friend Fat Chinese Gaming discovered when we were playing. It's basically the shack where Pearson hangs out at. You can just go hide in there and when the waves get more difficult, and you can just camp in there, and you should do quite well as long as you have plenty of food and tonics and ammo. But overall, it's just hard to run them out around that map because the snow is really, really thick because it's up in the West Grizzlies in the snowy area that's always snowing. Even though you can't use snowball fights, I really wish we could do snowball fights, Rockstar. Why can we do that in GTA Online when it snows, but not in Red Dead Online? I'm getting off topic. Back to Coulter. I just didn't really enjoy using Coulter as a map because, for one thing, like I mentioned, it's slow. You run slower going through that deep snow, and you can try to use a horse, and sometimes it's okay along the creek to use a horse, but then when you have to ride back up into Coulter itself, there's trees and stuff in the way, and you know how easily it is for a horse to be knocked over with like a stick or a rock or a pebble. It's just better just to stay on the ground and just run around between the trees and back and forth whenever you're trying to defend Coulter. Now, yes, you do have ally NPCs that will assist you with Coulter, just like with all the maps, but at the end of the day, it just really makes no sense why there would be anybody at Coulter in this time period. So Coulter was definitely my least favorite of the Holiday Call to Arms maps. I feel like the Holiday Call to Arms maps were okay, but my favorites easily the originals as well as the All Hallows Call to Arms maps, with the exception of Butcher's Creeks. Okay, so look at this crap. We're almost done with wave 10 at Rhodes. We're on top of the bank, Belfast and me, along with Tank and Dark Matter Wolf, and NPCs magically start spawning on top of the bank. Not only NPCs, but freaking horses. Freaking horses are spawning on top of the bank. This is a great feature, Rockstar. Well done. You've really play tested this. That's freaking great. Hold on, let me save Belfast real quick. But can you believe this crap? Like, what are these Pegasus horses? Did they fly up to the top of the bank magically? Did they learn to use ladders, or can they like hop really, really high? Seriously doubt it. This is just ridiculous. Well done, Rockstar. Well done. You know, having NPCs and horses magically spawn on top of the bank. Again. I mean, I'm sorry. This is ridiculous. But anyways, we managed to beat Wave 10 of Rhodes despite this nonsense. So there you go, pretty much how I rank the Call to Arms maps. Overall, as somebody that enjoys playing survivals from GTA Online to Red Dead Online, I think this is easily the best mode and the best content that was added to Red Dead Online in 2021. And if Rockstar intends to continue giving us new content in 2022, hopefully it'll be way more content, Rockstar, than what we got this past year. There's definitely future locations that I went over in my previous video a few months ago that would be great for future Call to Arms maps, like Ansburg, Sisika, Fort Wallace, Gaptooth, Mount Hagen, Guarma, Tumbleweed, Rathskeller Fork, Benedict Point, Twin Rocks, LaGras, Braithwaite Manor, Caliga Hall, Van Horn, the Harlan Oil Fields. Saint Denis itself would be great for several maps to use for Call to Arms. And I'm still hoping for an Undead Overrun type survival maps, similar to Red Dead Redemption multiplayer. That's if Rockstar actually goes to the trouble of giving us zombies. They gave us the Dead, the cosplay zombie wannabe cultists, but those are not zombies. We want zombies from Undead Nightmare, the regular zombies, the brutes, the little runners, the spitters. We want those zombies, Rockstar. And I hope that we end up getting an Undead Overrun Call to Arms map somewhere in the future, taking advantage of the graveyards, cemeteries, various other locations that are abandoned, like Fort Riggs, Fort Brennard, along with my spirit town, Limpany, Indian burial grounds, or the Viking burial grounds. There's definitely locations around Red Dead Online's map that would serve great as Undead Nightmare Overrun Call to Arms type zombie maps, and I hope that they do that somewhere down the road if they continue to give us content in Red Dead Online going into 2022, or at the very least, Rockstar, just give us a Call to Arms creator so we can create our own Call to Arms maps, taking advantage of all the various locations that I just mentioned. And it would be nice if we had a creator in Red Dead Online for other PvP, PvE modes. And I would also like the Rockstar editor, if that's not too much to ask. So there you go. That is just my thoughts overall regarding Call to Arms. I love these survivals. We got 13 maps total, and once the holiday Call to Arms are done, then I'm sure they're going to rotate back in the original Call to Arms maps. I don't know if they're planning on doing future Call to Arms maps, but I hope that they do, along with maybe future updates. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But I want to know what you thought about overall when it came to all the Call to Arms maps. How would you rank them? Which were your favorites? Which were your least favorites? Which sets did you like the most? The regulars, the originals, the OGs when it comes to the first 5 Call to Arms maps, the All Hallows Halloween Call to Arms maps, or the seasonal merry holiday Call to Arms maps. Which were your faves? Which were your least faves? And what do you think Rockstar should do with Call to Arms going forward into 2022? Your thoughts, your views, your opinions, as always, welcome below in the comments section.